Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mimi. If you don't know me, some of you might have already spoken to me or have been in the last workshop. So thank you if you have been. But if this is your first time, hello, welcome. My name's Mimi. I am the photographer account manager. I'm here to show you some training on verticals today and the keeping the vertical straight. So before we begin, you can either have your cameras on or off. It's up to you. It's always lovely to see your lovely faces, but if you prefer it off, it's fine as well. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a really short presentation. There is a little bit of an interactive bit within it, and then I'm going to open it up to a casual Q&A at the end of the session. So for the presentation, if I can ask everyone to mute their microphones, please, just starting now, just so that we can eliminate any background noise, that would be great. Right, so today we are speaking rules and to keep them straight. Hopefully, can everyone see the PowerPoint presentation? Thumbs up? Yeah?
No.
Can you see it says verticals at the moment?
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah, it's that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Right. So there are a few simple requirements to keep in mind when you are photographing in order to keep the vertical straight. One of them is to always use a tripod. So with using a tripod, you can make sure that your angles are straight and that you know that you're eliminating sort of any handheld error by using the tripod. So first and foremost, definitely use a tripod. Second thing is to use the spirit levels on the tripod. So most tripods will come with at least two spirit levels. I know mine has 3. So if you use the spirit levels on your tripod and just align them to make everything straight, including the camera tilt. So the camera should not be tilting at all. It should be pointing straight and not at an angle. So if you're using a tripod and you're using the spirit levels in the tripod to make sure that the camera angle is straight, that will prevent any tilting, and then that will therefore ensure that your verticals are straight. So the third thing to keep in mind or to use as a requirement is the grid on your live view. So most cameras will have a grid. If you haven't used yours before, or if you're just not keen on using it, I would suggest becoming really good friends with it, because it will really be key in getting your verticals straight. So just to recap here, to make everything simple, I have dwindled down the requirements to 3 things. So using a tripod, using the spirit levels on the tripod to make sure that the camera is pointing completely straight and not at an angle, and then using the grid on your live view. So this is the interactive bit. Can anybody tell me whether these verticals are straight or not?
No. It's not straight.
No? Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
The picture frame's not straight.
Okay. It's a good shout.
Yeah, the doors look okay.
Okay.
And the back corner looks okay.
Okay. So those are really good answers. So the answer here is that the verticals are not straight. So I've drawn a straight line at the door, and you can see that it's almost straight, but not quite. So you can see that there's more space at the bottom of my red line there than there is at the top, which means that it is not straight. In terms of the picture frame, I'm glad that you brought that up. Anything that is non-structural should not be measured against verticals. So if, for example, they've put the picture frame up wrong or they've put it up wonky and you measure your verticals against that, it's just not a good measuring point. However, this is the next slide here where I've actually put a blue mark where the picture frame is, because while it's not it should never be a primary option at looking against your verticals, it is a really good secondary option to look at non-structural objects such as a picture frame. In this particular case, the picture frame was straight. So you can see here, I've outlined the straight line there. You can see that it's not straight. But the most important thing is you want to go by mainly the corners of the room. So you can see the main corner in this room is covered by a curtain. Normally, that would be your best option. However, it's covered by a curtain, but that's totally fine. The next option, obviously, is the door that's next to it. So anything structural that was built into the property, door frames and corners, basically, you should be measuring your verticals against to get a nice vertical line. So with this particular image, this is why I wanted to talk about angles. So this was taken at a slight tilt downwards, only slightly. So the bottom spirit level on the tripod was straight, but the top one wasn't. So it's only pointing down just a little bit, which actually throws the verticals off. So you can see here that it's very subtle, but the verticals are not straight.
Cool.
So same image here, except this is from looking up. So here you can see that rather than tilting down, it's tilting slightly up, which is also throwing the verticals off. So I've drawn the red line here by the door, and you can see now that there's extra room near the top of the door frame, rather than when it was tilting down where there was extra room at the bottom of the line. So super important to keep the camera pointing forward. So here we have an example of a straight verticals. So this is what you want the image to look like. It's pointing straight, and everything was measured against the grid. So I've drawn the red line here, and hopefully you can see now that the verticals are straight. Okay. Okay, so just to recap, 3 things to remember to keep the verticals straight. Always use a tripod. Always use the spirit levels on the tripod, the one that's keeping the tripod at the bottom, and then the spirit level at the top that is for tilting the tripod. And then definitely, if you can, use your grid on the back of your camera for the live view. That way you can actually line up the verticals right then and there, and see if anything is throwing you off. So these slides are repeating themselves for some reason. Right, so now we will open to a Q&A. You can either shout out to me if you like, or if you prefer, you can just type it in the chat box. You should see a chat box in your chat there. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I've got one. What I tend to do is I've got a big video tripod that I use.
Okay.
So I got the video tripod set up, and then what I do is I put this live view on and use that. I don't know whether you can see it, but you know then where you're level and you're straight because it goes green, and so you know that the camera is absolutely level and straight. It's going to be a straight shot.
Yeah.
It would take a long time to get the tripod completely level, but if you know that the camera's level and straight and it's with the right height, then that should give you the best result. And that's what I've done for years. So, and plus
Yes.
my tripod head doesn't have any spirit levels on it either. Downstairs, I can't show you it, but that's what I tend to do.
Yes, I know some tripods actually don't have spirit levels. There are, for example, for most cameras, as you say in the live view, will actually have the spirit level. So I would suggest if, exactly as you say, if you are using a tripod without a spirit level, then using the spirit level in your camera is definitely a really good option. And as you say, I don't know what camera you're using, but it's similar to mine. I have Canon 60, and as soon as you tilt it or move it, it will go green and red.
Yeah, that's it. It's a
yeah.
it's a Nikon D750.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I don't think I've used that camera, but it sounds really similar where it's basically a spirit level within the camera. So yeah. That's great.
Okay.
And are you experiencing the way that you're doing that? Are you experiencing any issues with verticals or?
No, not with verticals, but sometimes if you've got a piece of furniture in the way, like say a radiator or something like that, if you can't get square on to what you're looking at, what your horizontals get thrown out sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that really matters for this, because in the corner, when you're in the corner of a room, your horizontals are never going to be horizontal anyway. But if you're doing a lot of square on shots, like I've got a French customer that insists on doing a lot of symmetrical, and you've got to be aware of that. So you've got to get your verticals, and you've got to get your horizontals right as well.
Yeah.
But that's positioning the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I think this is why a tripod is crucial as well, because generally the tripod will balance on obviously the ground that you're working with, and then depending on what angle you're on, it shouldn't be, if you are measuring up the grid and the spirit levels to the verticals, to the structural verticals that you see, then that shouldn't really be throwing the horizontals off. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what you mean. But if you want to ever send me examples, I'll be happy to look at them.
Yeah, sure.
Right, we have a question on the chat. Can you use a spirit level that fits into the hot shoe of the camera? Yes, you can. That's a method that works for some people. Again, if you don't have a spirit level on your camera or on your tripod, I've definitely seen it work that way as well. Do verticals get fixed in post if they are ever slightly off? Yes. So our post-production team works on verticals. The only thing I would say about that is if it's hard to explain, but if the image isn't vertically straight as it is, yes, it can be fixed in post, but then that might throw some other things off in the image. So yeah, that's why it's important to get it as right as you can get it while you're taking the image. But yes, they do get fixed in post. I don't know if you've ever done auto verticals in post-production, but if you have, then you'll see that it's not always that great. Any other questions from anyone?
No.
Is there anything specific that, any feedback you've had or anything specific that you'd like to talk about?
Well, there's one thing you've got to be very careful with, even when you've got a tripod and you have got everything balanced up and level and everything. If you're using a remote control, what can happen is, and I found it happened to me the other day, get motion blur if you're on a wooden floor that will actually move up and down. So you see, you've got like a fifth of a second exposure, and you've got everything level, everything straight, and it looks perfect in live view. It looks perfect through the lens. You press the button, and because it's a fifth of a second exposure, and because the floor's wooden, and because you might have leaned over, put the flash in the right place, you can get motion blur if you're not careful. So you've got to be aware of things like that as well, things that move.
Do you mean with using a tripod as well?
Yeah, using the tripod, I did everything, and I just noticed that, hang on a minute, that the writing on that picture's out of focus, and it's because of that. So you've got to be aware of that. Even when you've done everything right, you've got to make sure that you don't sort of move the tripod by any sort of external circumstances.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Even pressing the shutter button can sometimes throw it off.
I'll try and use it both, but yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, especially to prevent motion blur and things, you know, you can increase your shutter speed to help that as well. So yeah. Right. Anything else from anyone? Has anybody had any specific vertical issues with their photos, aside from, for example, the ones I've shown where it's tilting up or down?
Well, there's a question about doing external front shots as well. If you want a straight front shot from outside and say there's a car parked in the way, so you don't want to get the car in the picture, then you will have to occasionally tilt the camera upwards for the straight front shot, because you haven't got the space behind you. If you want to exclude the car or the wheelie bin or whatever it is that's in the way.
Yeah. So front externals are, we're going to have another session on externals at another point. But yes, front externals are much trickier to get if you are pointing the camera straight on. For specific front externals, sometimes, depending on the angle, it's actually better to point the camera up or down if it is a larger property and you can't possibly fit everything, you know, in landscape in the image. So, but yeah, we'll have another session on front externals at one point. But if, generally speaking, from what you've said, it sounds like stepping back would also help. But if you don't have the space, or if stepping back is giving you too much pavement or too much sky,
or there's a car or a lorry in the way, because you get that quite a lot. If you're doing estate agency photography, you get, you know, vehicles parked that you can't move, or people will be a bin in the way or something. So you need to be closer in.
Yeah, I would say still we want a few different shots of the external. So one at an angle. We always say one at an angle and one straight on. That's our general rule. So even if there is a car or a bin in the way, I would say take that image anyways, because it might be used. So yeah. Right. If you're getting too much ceiling in the composition, would it be better to lower the camera? No. So the camera should always be just above waist height, which is 4.5 feet. So if you measure that, and generally speaking, all of the internal images should be taken at 4.5 feet. So you shouldn't be getting too much ceiling if you're taking it at that height. Hopefully that answered your question, Kester, but if you want to expand on that, feel free. Next question, there's always a challenge with old buildings and both walls and doors can be off vertical. So that's a really good point in terms of the structure of the building. But when you are taking the image, it needs to go based on the structure of the building. So that's why we always say measure your verticals up with something structural, such as the door frame or the corner. The main corner is really what you want to measure it up with. But again, like in the image that I showed, that corner was covered by a curtain. So anything structural you measure it up with, when you take the photo, if that vertical is straight, then it will look straight in the photo. So yeah, basically measure that up with even if it's a wonky structure, you'll make it look unwonky by measuring up the verticals with the structure of the building. Okay, thank you. Is lens distortion fixed in post as well? That's a really good question. Sometimes it depends how distorted it is. So I know that obviously with a wide angle lens, you're going to have some distortion. Generally speaking, for most images, they don't require any fixing in post. But if there is something potentially really off that cannot be fixed while you're taking the image, then yes, it will be fixed in post-production. Cool. Anyone else with any other questions?
My picture? Correct?
Oh, yes, I can see.
I think so. It's very, very correct.
Yeah, is that yours, Christoph?
Yeah,
Nice, it looks really good.
I think so.
Yeah, it looks really good. Well done. Yeah. Looks like a nice property as well.
Of course. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions, even not relating to verticals, just anything? I believe most of you are going through the trial process, so if you have anything to ask at all, please do.
Yeah, I got one about the windows because I missed the seminary or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. No problem.
Is it just by creating an HDR image?
No. So please email me afterwards, or I'll write your name down and remember to email you, because we have the link for that seminar as well that I can send over. Right. But to answer your question in short, we do not use HDR. So in property photography, there are two methods of lighting. One is flash and one is HDR. We use the flash method. Our post-production team edits from the flash method, so we don't use any HDR at all, which is one of the reasons why I was keen to get the window exposure seminar done, because I wanted to show how to do it without doing HDR. So what you do basically, to summarize, again, I'll send you the seminar to look at, but to summarize, the main gist of it is to first expose for the windows. So not using the flash, you want to get the exposure for the windows just right so that you can actually see outside. Then when you have those settings in place, that's when you add the flash.
Right.
And that will expose the room properly, because if you're exposing for the room, that's how the windows usually get blown out.
But then you will get two different sources of light. You will get like sunlight outside and flashlight inside. Yes,
yeah, exactly. And usually on sunnier days, because there's a lot of strong light coming in, it means that you have to overcompensate a little bit with your flash to make it stronger.
Yeah, I've got a question regarding that. I watched one of your training videos on YouTube, and the person doing the training suggested that you should only really go to maximum to half power on your flash. Now, the other day, I had a really, really bright day with very pale walls outside, and I was really struggling to balance up the outside with the inside with just using the flash on half power. So, I mean, how how set in stone are those rules? Because I would have been better off just using full flash and then just recompensating in manual on the camera. So the results were a bit sort of underexposed indoors, but properly exposed outdoors. And can you fix that?
Yeah, I would say that that probably isn't set in stone. That's more of a guidance. And the reason being is because the flash is meant to act as a secondary source of light rather than a primary. So when you're boosting the flash too much, it acts as a primary source of light, and rather than being a light diffusion and filling the shadows in the room, it will, it'll be a really prominent light flash, and just make the images not look as nice, really. So I would say if you are doing what you said, then try it. And if you think it looks good, obviously it's hard for me to see without looking at it, but if you think it looks good and the flash isn't completely and overly prominent, then go for it. Right. Any other questions? Oh, I see a question from you, Kester, for the recruitment side. So we will get somebody to look at that for you.
Will you be offering any workshops regarding floor planning?
Yes, so we have had one floor plan workshop that I can send to you as well. We are going to have these set up regularly. We don't have the schedule at the moment. Hopefully we'll be closer to finalizing one by the end of today, but as soon as we have one, we'll let you know. But yes, we will have some more sessions on floor plans.
Okay.
Cool. Any last questions before we wrap up?
Can I ask how long the trial process lasts?
Sorry, how do you mean? Is submitting your trials?
Yes, I mean, if you've submitted 2, how long does it take before you find out whether you've been successful or not?
So again, that will go to the recruitment team.
Right.
We have Phil Taylor actually on the call, so he will make a note and get back to you on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Jenny.
There he
I
is.
just wanted to quickly jump in and we're just dealing with a lot of trials coming through, and we are getting through them as quickly as we can. So I guess the short answer is, as soon as we can get to the second trial, we'll give you some feedback. And generally, we ask for 3 trials from each candidate to make sure that we're getting the right specifications that we need. We'll get around to it as soon as possible.
Lovely. And can I ask, it mentioned something about the 360 trial. Is that something that we have to do? Because I don't have a 360 camera.
Yes, so we will need a 360 camera, but I think if you haven't spoken to someone already, you guys won't be aware of this yet. But once when we get around to looking at your trials, and someone will phone you, they will tell you everything about that, because if you don't have a 360 camera, we can help you to get one. So as soon as we've assessed your second trial, someone will be in touch, and we'll give you a call, and we'll speak to you about the 360.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, anyone else with any photography questions before we wrap up? John has posted the training content on our YouTube channel. If you check out the link that he posted there, if you if you'd like, it has our previous sessions as well. So
good. Mimi, a question from Alan for Phil.
Hello. Oh.
Hi Phil. I sent in my second trial, which was around the floor planning, but I used the original photographs. So just checking now, was that okay?
Sorry, say that again. You sent a second trial through, but it was just a second floor plan.
It was, yes. So I sent the original photographs and a new floor plan, rather than sending a whole new set of photographs.
Okay. Did you get feedback on your photo? So
I got feedback on the photographs saying they were all okay. It was the floor plan that wanted a second attempt.
Yeah, then that should be fine.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, cool, guys. Well, if there's no other photography questions, then we will wrap up here. Thank you so much for joining. And yes, we again are going to be holding these workshops quite regularly. So please keep an eye out for any emails that come through about the next ones.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
guys. Have a great day. Thanks.
Okay, cheers now.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hello. Mum's at the gym somewhere, so she's not online.